Yo YouTube, GK back with a video, not a lore through. So this definitely took some time and really took a lot of time to gather the information I definitely wanted to share with you. The reasons and the desire and the want for a Final Fantasy III and everything I would want in the game, well, almost everything. This is a longer video and definitely will have a lot of, cuts and edits. So for right now, just take a brief look at all of the topics we'll kind of be covering in the video. We'll be doing like races, the attire, characters, character relations, the novella and the audio drama, ideas, and that's kind of where we'll spur a lot of our video topics. So the first thing that's pretty obvious or not obvious, we'll just jump right into are the races of Spira. It's interesting with the races because we know of, the Guado, the Ronso, we have Albed, and I guess the human race. However, there are a few that are very different, like the Hypello. In Final Fantasy X-3, I want more development of the Hypello. Where do they come from? And that'll also lead into another topic, but I want more about the Opello and how they do their thing. All we really know is that they have an affinity for swimming and they can spend a lot of time in the water. Maybe even get a Hypello in our party member. The other one is Tobli, or the musicians. The musicians and Tobli are very different than a lot of the other races we saw in the franchise, especially the musicians, because their backstory is kind of like they are spirits of the wood, Macalania woods, and they and kind of incarnate themselves. They can turn into butterflies. It's a very unique trait to have, and it's like an owl, it's like a little mouse, and it's like a blue, big Oompa Loompa type of guy. And Tobli, I'm just not 100% convinced it is necessarily a child under that, but it very well could be like a midget, like the Wizard of Oz. And we don't really see many of them at all, if not any in the world. So I definitely want more explanation as to them. But again, the people in the woods, the musicians, I'm calling them as a race, their story could be explained in something else when we talk about places. But yeah, those are the main races I want to see, and I want to see what happens with the Guado. Probably out of all of the races, except for maybe why Pain has red eyes. But eye color doesn't necessarily denote race. I mean, it does, even in the real world. Yuna has the blue eye human and the green eye Albed. I want to see what happens with the Guado, because I want to know if they go completely extinct or do they flourish in a new realm or new area of Spira. And I want to see how these other releases came to be, right? Because in the novella and the audio drama, there really isn't a mention of races. And if you recall, Titus is shocked to see a Ronso, right? So I don't know. I want to know what spurred these races. How did they come to be? There's just so many questions about the races of Spira that isn't necessarily explained, like in, for example, like Final Fantasy XIV, the Beastmen tribes. They have a backstory, but we don't get that. So that is what I want to see from the races in Final Fantasy. Attire, this is probably our shortest category. The world of Spira what drew me in initially was the art direction of it all. And something that always caught my eye were the masks that everyone wears. The Albed wear masks. Tobli wears a mask. No one in our main party wears a mask. But the characters in the world wear masks, and they're very like ritualistic, like Native American type, Japanese type like masks. And I want to know where that look came from, because we can get the idea of a helmet that Bavel wore in the pre-Thousand Year War, like the Thousand Year War, and then now they kind of look very similar. You know, in that cutscene with Shuyin, we saw the soldiers and they kind of saw the same design. But we're talking about masks and what they signify or mean. I definitely want a little bit more to that overall. It was just an interesting part, and you should be seeing a few pictures of it, and I want to see more of it, because the art direction of the world is really that beautiful. Now for one of our more lengthy topics for Final Fantasy X-3 characters. So I guess the big one I want to see Owaka the First. Yes, Owaka the First. Was Owaka the First a kingpin? Right before Rin knocked him off, was Owaka the go-to guy? Was it like Rin's travel agencies? What was going on? I want to know about Owaka the First. Very, very much so. Pain. I guess I should also state that this is also characters in terms of like what I want to see from them or don't want to see from them. Pain. I have certain grievances with Pain. I don't necessarily like her character that much. I get her role, and you know, I appreciate her. I just don't necessarily like her. Yuna, for example, at one point says, I need to be alone, and Pain says, you know, why do you need to be alone, Yuna? And that irked me, because Pain's always like, I want to be alone, I don't want to be talked to, and everyone respects that. But when Yuna says that, I didn't like her answer. Like, in the first Final Fantasy X, when Yuna needed space, everyone gave her space. You know, there was a tone about that, and there was an understanding about things, and Titus was the only one who didn't get it, and Pain and that, not only that instance, but another instance with they have to burn down the temple. Pain is so insensitive to the temple burning on Yuna's part that it made me just angry that she could be so insensitive to Yuna's feelings about the temple and Wakka. You know, disrespecting Wakka outright, as if Wakka is some scrub-a-dub. You know, I didn't like that. And then there's another one where she says, maybe we need to let our past go and let Titus go. Who are you to tell Yuna to let Titus go because you have a problem with your past? The funny thing is, the people in Pain's past are still alive. Yeah, we don't know her family and all that, but the Baralai, Nuge, and Gipple, they're alive. You're just choosing not to talk to them because of what happened when everyone knows something weird happened, and it was no one's really their fault. It was something else. And, you know, she says that when the whole journey is about finding Titus and finding what happened in that sphere, and people are on board with that, and Pain just, you know, unless they make some serious character change to Pain, which I don't think they really made in the novella, I personally don't need Pain. I don't see her fitting with the crowd, especially if potentially Arn comes back. I don't see her role being there that much. I don't necessarily like her attitude as a character. I thought she was the weakest of the girls, even though, you know, you spent the most time with Yuna and Riku. Pain didn't resonate with me for whatever reason. The next thing, obviously, Mihen, or Machin, the old dude storyteller, he needs to make an appearance again because, you know, he says his job's not done in a obscure cutscene from Final Fantasy X2's international version when you're doing the creature creator. He says he's going to come back, and I want to see him because he knows way too much. He has Bria syndrome. Now, if you don't know who Bria is, he was in the novella, where they can remember they've lived so long that their memories are chopped up, to say the least. So I definitely want to see him. Donna, another character. I want to see Donna as the leader of Kilika, or at the very least had a baby with, you know, Bartello. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, especially since the idea of making a new family and families of this generation in Spira really sticking together and being alive is a theme, whereas prior to Sin's defeat was not so much the case for the children and the people of the world that have their parents. Lulu and Wakka being the examples of that. So I definitely want to see that. In terms of characters as well, we need to see Shinra, and Shinra is an oddball because the Al Bhed we learned so much about being machines themselves and descendants of the lowest class of machines, consistently says, like a machine, that it's his last mission. So I don't want to see Shinra. I don't want to see Shinra. As much as he was a great character, there's something odd about him. Again, he's one of those people who wear the mask and never take it off. And I have a theory of questioning what his face actually looks like. But I don't want to see him near the party, necessarily being so integral and involved as he was in X2, because he does say it's his last mission, and I take Shinra for his word. And I like the idea of that. I think it fits rather well. Let's move on to. Before that, obviously, I want to see more from Nuge, Berli, and Gipple, of course. I think their roles in Spears should be spearheaded to the forefront, and we need to see way more of them, undoubtedly. So we'll move to some places, and this is a concept where we can explore them. So, like places, I want to see Makalani Woods. I want to know what has happened to the woods. The woods has been getting slowly degradation and going and fading away, as they say. Is it just going to be an empty space there, or is something else going to be there in the woods that we didn't find or see before? Because the woods are rather big. I know the game makes it seem small, but there's, I'm sure, uncharted wood area that you couldn't access, and maybe a temple's over there or something. And that coincides with the Makalani Lake. Also, I want to see what's going on with the lake, because we did find those ruins at the bottom of the lake, and there's a giant hole there. So that can be further explored as an area as a whole. As well as, speaking of temples, Requiem Temple over there in the Calmlands. What's going on with that? Is that turning into something else? Are the Chocobo races going to be there a little bit, better as like an activity to do? I think that might be a good place to explore, because we didn't really see it too much in Final Fantasy X2. And the big one, Bavel. Bavel needs to be fully explorable and, a real location for us to go. There's no reason we didn't do it in X2. I don't know why. I'm just not sure, because they still had this stigma, I believe. But in X3, I want that stigma to be lifted off of Bavel, the town, and the people of Bavel. We never really got to see the real people of Bavel. We know that they're struggling. There are a lot of old people in Bavel with old money, and they're struggling because of the change. I want to feel that in X3 because of all the technology. And I was talking about the Hypello, the underwater locations of where the Hypello might be. They kind of coincide with each other. And the big one, Under the Sand of Big Canal. The sands are always moving, and I have a theory about the Big Canal, especially why all of the Machina always attacked home, because those Machina were sent from Bavel to attack the Al Bhed, who were aligned with Zanarkand in the war. So it might have been production factory, something out there in the Al Bhed, because the Al Bhed were workers, they are machines. The lowest class are Al Bhed, but there were two other classes, Affinity for magic and like the bosses. So I think there's a lot more to Beacon now that we really need to see. Maybe a whole ruined scape city or something, factories or something down there in the desert would be nice to see. So speaking of like activities like that Chocobo racing, Blitzball, I want it to be more like Final Fantasy X. However, I will hold judgments on that until Final Fantasy XIV. It drops their Blitzball version, which I am excited about, needless to say. But I definitely want to see Blitzball. I don't really need the multiplication adding game. I don't really need Sphere Break. Not necessarily. One of the games I thoroughly enjoyed. But here's the next topic, relations. Now these are relations between characters or otherwise. So I want more explanation on the Keenock-Arin relationship. A lot more, as to say the turn in character shifts, the time Keenock figured everything out was a lie, yet still sided with them. I want to see more than that, and I guess I should stay outright. As much as I had wanted a Arin Braska Jecht story, I don't think that story works so well anymore, given all of the novella, audio drama, and that last mission. I don't think that story works anymore, and I don't think that's the Spira I necessarily need to see. I do want to see that Spira because it was so old school and traditional, and there wasn't change, and things were as they were, and that idea and topic though was expressed intent enough that you felt that old school and the new school coming in, that I don't think we need that anymore. So I want them to tell that story of those three over again in a new way, even though I don't need Jecht necessarily to be this sin that comes back. I think that every sin was different, and I can point to reasons why. Our sin, like that little sphere ball, it floated in a water pool, like for a blitz ball, and that's just one of the things that makes, I think, every sin unique, because our sin, like the hymn of the faith. So I really do believe every sin is different, and I proposed that idea many years ago, but just never got it out there to the masses. A big one here, in terms of the novella, I figured out that, in reading the novella, that, and even you could deduce this from the main games, there are certain bases and remnants left from the war that we never really realized. We just assumed that the ruins and all were from a period of long ago where, it was, and then they just got destroyed, or they were from 500 years ago and got destroyed. I think there's more evidence to denote that there were bases, military installments, when I mean to say bases, on Besaid, Beaconell, the Thunder Plains, the Calm Lands, Gagaset, and Meehan High Road, and those are at the very least. We explore secondary bases and dungeons in all of those areas I just mentioned, some with security locks, some with defensive measures, some were strategic locations for a war to take place. For example, Cuba, in a real life example for the U.S. and I don't even know, what was it, Germany? So those are the base idea. I want you to try to keep that in your head. But we're sticking back to the relations really quick. Seymour and Barreleye. I want a little bit more of Seymour and Barreleye. I need to trust Barreleye a little bit more and know he's really of the people and not just this older generation guard trying to slow down the progress Spears trying to make. Because Seymour took Barreleye under his wing kind of, and hit him and it's shocking to think about, but that's what happened. A little side story, I want Sid and Nadalia to be together, but that leads a question into Riku's mom. Don't really know much about that. They're cousins. We don't really know much about that, but it'd be nice to get. And then Shuyin and Titus is the big clear one. We understand Len and Yuna, but Titus is a different character, and I know it's Titus because he is an unsent, a beckoned figure, a phantom, however you would like to discuss and talk about him. He's a dream of the faith. So his roots in reality are a lot different than Yuna and Len per se, who she felt it through the dress sphere. Remember, Shuyin took over the people in the cave in the Mushroom Rock Road. But I just need a little bit more explanation to that to tie that up nicely, because I know the story changed from Shuyin was initially going to be Titus, but that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. If you were trying to pass, and I'm glad they didn't do that, because it doesn't make sense that would be Titus, given that Titus doesn't know it that much. But that's just, those relations could be expanded on a lot more. Sin's arrival, I would like to see a new, different kind of Sin, because he got beckoned by someone else who had strong memories of Sin and wanted Sin. So it's not Titus. Titus doesn't want to see Jecht as Sin. and he's on the power of a summoner, but a different summoner could have pulled their father, for example, and he was a Sin before Braska or anything, because I mentioned in a video that people will most likely see at least 2 Sins in their lifetime, considering that is what we can go off of what happened in our games. There were people alive who saw 2 Sins. So who knows about that? The Kinder Guardians, I want them to have evolved to the Kinder Corpse. I'm kind of just like naming some things now with no necessarily plan here. We got in, and the clear, I guess not clear, but all throughout Final Fantasy X, we thought there was only one shoe puff, and it turns out in Final Fantasy X2, I found another shoe puff and another shoe puff, and there were more. So I'm unclear as to the gravity and weight. That line about all of these shoe puffs are extinct from the audio drama carries because there were multiple shoe puffs in Final Fantasy X2. So I need that to be a little bit more fleshed out. It could have been an error in terms of, you know, not 100% remembering that X2 had that shoe puff, since it wasn't necessarily key to the plot. Though to stress on it, I need that to be refleshed out, and you know, expanded on, because for it to carry that weight, it needs that clarity. And I guess that would be kind of it. I mean, I guess broad strokes, we need to really discuss the 1,000-Year War, and we really need to understand when Sin came into the world and how, and we need a lot more context to what it was like before the war. We know that Bavel had the power because it took summoners to create flames, but then when the Al-Bhed were created, and they weren't called the Al-Bhed, the Bedals, they could make flame without the need of a summoner, so Bavel's power waned, and then Xanarkin kind of rose to prominence. There is an era of old lords, Lucera, gods. Some people believe, some people don't believe. However, Yuna has a conference with one of those gods, so we kind of need that. I don't necessarily need the novella to be in the game, right? Because I do believe content can stand alone. And however you feel about content standing on itself, that is kind of a you thing. Because it's hard to push to someone the idea that content may not come from a video game, even though it's a video game world. It can come from outside, like Final Fantasy 15 did Brotherhood, the anime, did a movie. Final Fantasy 7 had spin-off games. So it's however you feel about that. I personally don't need a direct translation of the novella into the game. However, some snippets of clarity from what happened in it, I'll take in the form of like spheres, like we did with Jack's spheres. I will take that. I don't want to play what happened in the novella, even though I think it would be dope, especially the scene Titus running through space and time, almost like running on a beach, and I mean, you have to read it and visualize it, but that would be really cool to see. But I don't necessarily need to see it. Now, the audio drama stuff, that is something I would want to see, because to me, the time frame in which X3 would take place, it would be about 2 years after the events of the novella. So and I figured the novella took place within a span of 6 months, most likely less, of the events of X2. I'd see some growth, Videl being a little older, Waka's kid, so you'll be able to visually see that. So that's kind of where I figured the time takes place, and I want to see the Yuna and Titus banter, because Titus at that point had died and Yuna brought him back, and that's something that no one's really done outside of the far plane in terms of the physical sense, and then now everything in the far plane almost has been coming back, almost as if they are real. I know the description is that they are real. However, I take issues with that, and I think they're more ephemeral than that. But that's kind of gonna wrap up everything for what I want to see from Final Fantasy X3. That is nowhere near everything, but I do want this video to be watched and won't make it 3 hours and expand on all the ideas. I hope you're able to keep pace with me a little bit and understand where I'm coming from with the ideas and the breakdowns. And I wanted to create a video this time and not do what I've been doing. However, we will return to the lore through most definitely, because I love Final Fantasy 15, and once I finish everything with 10, I definitely want to move to 15 being that next game. I really can go deep with lore and ideas and everything, but since the game isn't technically finished yet, always gotta wait for that and do all of that. I also play Final Fantasy 14, not 100% sure if it's a stream game. Just started Spyro as well as Prey, and got back into Warframe. So that's kind of what's on my docket right now, looking for Assassin's Creed Odyssey maybe. Put anything down in the comments if you want to see something. I got no problem with that, but I'm gonna get back to other video types like the drawing videos. I know those people like those, so just trying to keep my options open. I'm gonna edit this video while I watch the Eagles beat the Redskins for hopefully a playoff spot. I'm GK. Have a good day.